Hey, and welcome to the Sit Down with Suzanne podcast. I am your girl, Suzanne, also known as Positively Suzanne. Now, remember, this podcast was created with us in mind. It is a reminder that not only are we worthy, but we deserve the best versions of ourselves. So grab a cup of tea or your beverage of choice and sit back and relax and join me on this journey. I had a much different show from this week's episode scheduled for you guys, but I felt like this kept calling me. I felt like every conversation I was having throughout the week was leading up to this. I felt like every coaching conversations, every post that I liked is just everything was leading up to this. And, this is something that I've actually dealt with myself. And I'm like, you know what? God, kind of like when I'm teaching messages, when I'm preaching, that you give me the message that you want me to deliver. And I know that somebody needs to know this. So let's talk about it. We are going to talk about pivoting. So when is it okay to pivot? As I mentioned, I get asked this so much. People are like, well, is it okay to pivot? They're asking, when should I pivot? This is my answer for you because I truly believe in not only being your authentic self as I, released that episode last week, but I believe that you do have to do what works for you. And it's very hard. So if you are trying to people please, you need to cut that out right now. Yes, it is absolutely okay to pivot because this is about you and about your life, and no one else can live your life for you. No one else can run your race for you. So you have to figure out what it is that you want. And if you need to pivot, you need to pivot because going down the wrong path just because you are afraid of letting other people down, going down the wrong path. And I won't even say it's necessarily the wrong path, but going down a path that you know that you don't want, it's just not okay. So it is okay to pivot. And the other question is, when do you pivot? It's whenever you want, whenever you feel like you have to. Now, I know people talk about this current generation, they don't stay loyal to a job. They quit whenever they want. And you know what? To each his own, right? Because I think that our generation, we stayed loyal to jobs that were toxic. We stayed loyal to jobs that no longer served us. We stayed loyal to jobs that we weren't happy in, but we didn't really believe that we could be happy and working in a place at the same time. So I think that this generation, as much as people frown on it, like, well, they will leave a job in a heartbeat, like they're protecting their mental health. They're like, listen, this doesn't work for me. And believe me, I've hired a lot of them. So it is frustrating sometimes because they will just quit in a heartbeat, whether they have a good reason or not. But our generation stayed in roles and jobs and kept going down paths that they rightfully should have given up on and moved on to something else. So they're like, well, when do I pivot? When do I pivot? I can't do this. And I'm laughing right now as I'm saying it because I don't know if y'all watch Friends, but you guys know that I like my TV shows and my movies. But there was the episode of Friends where they were helping Ross move and he was going up the stairs with a couch and he was like, pivot, pivot, pivot. So I'm saying this to you right now. Pivot, 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 because you need to pivot. So if you are questioning your path right now, it's okay to pivot. If you're going down a path that you are no longer fulfilled by, it's okay to pivot. If you're going down this path because you're trying to please somebody else, it's okay to pivot. It is absolutely okay to pivot to make sure that you are doing what's right for you. Life is precious. And I believe that every second is important. But life is actually very short when you think about, the actual lifespan. And I hear these stories of how many people, in their 20s or their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and they're passing away. And, there are folks that, yeah, that are living to in their 80s and their 90s. But we have to make sure, like, try something new, try something different. And, if what we're doing isn't aligned with what we really want, even if it was something that we wanted before, we can let it go. I've certainly pivoted a couple of times in my life because you can start out on a path and realize that this path is not for you. And I think about it because when I was growing up, there was very few careers available to kids, right? Adults ask kids what they wanted to be. You had to answer like lawyer, doctor, and engineer, and things like that. So I thought about this if I had decided that I wanted to be a doctor, and I liked it, but I have zero tolerance for blood and cuts and bodily fluids and things like that. So that would not be a good career path for me. So if I decided that, okay, this is what I'm going to do because I am trying to please family members who would be impressed by the title doctor, I would be doing this and making myself sick until I reached this level that I couldn't go any further. And I'd wasted all these years going after something that I knew that I didn't want to do. So if what you're doing isn't aligned with who you are or where you're trying to be, or even if it had aligned before, it's okay to change our mind. You know, we don't have to do something just because we said we were going to do it all along. And I don't mean somebody who's wishy-washy and double-minded and changing their mind. I'm just saying if you said to somebody, okay, my goal is to be a pharmacist, and you start going to school and you're putting in the work and you realize this is truly not for you. I think it's important that you make that decision before you go all the way and realize that this is truly not for me. So we have to take care of ourselves, because I find that when what I am doing in my professional lives align with my values and my purpose, my mental health, my emotional health, and my spiritual health is so much better. Right. So you don't want to go all the way to the end and realize this was not what you wanted, and then you're going to have to start over. But even if that did happen, it's still okay to pivot right there. It was just going to be a little harder. You know, we are afraid of a lot of things. And as I find as I'm coaching, the two biggest things that hold people back from pivoting is number one, they're afraid of looking like a failure. Failure is not the end. Failure does not define you. Failure is something that I truly believe that every successful person has experienced. And failure teaches us something that success doesn't, because easy come, easy go, right? And sometimes if you do something and it comes easy to you and you don't have to exert any energy for it, you don't appreciate it as much as if you had worked really hard for it. I'm not saying I don't want the gentle life. I don't want the lovely life where, it's vacations and all of that and shopping, great times. But I truly appreciate the things that I have done, how hard I work to get the things that I have, how hard I work to get, the vacations that I take. But if y'all are ready to throw me some vacations, I'm not going to say no to you, right? Because Suzanne is all about that luxury living life if y'all want to throw it to me. But failure is not the end. And I have failed at so many things, and I will continue to fail at a lot of things. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop trying things, because if you stop trying, what is the fun in that? What is the joy in that? Think about something, the last thing you did, it wasn't really serious, but you like failed at it. And just how much fun it was, and just going through it. I could think of things like riding a scooter, or learning how to float, or jumping off a board, diving board, or something like that, something fun. But you kept failing until you mastered it, and it was fun. Unfortunately, I get it, like doing a business or starting a career or going to school, feeling like a failure is not a great thing. But here's the thing: as long as you don't end up dead from that failure, you can try again. There's so many great people that I admire that have failed at things, and they did not allow it to define them. They started over doing something else, or they started over doing the same thing. It's just like the song, it's like, don't call it a comeback. Well, it is a comeback, and it's okay. Comebacks are fantastic. I love a good comeback. Everybody loves a good comeback story. That's why a lot of these shows that you watch, right? So the hero, what is the hero doing? He's going along being a hero, and then somebody comes along and tests the hero, and they fail, and then they come back bigger and stronger. So failure is not the end. Failure doesn't define you. And learning how to fail will help you manage so much better because you have to figure out, how do I deal when I fail at something? So when you fail at the small things and the medium things and then the really big things, and it's not fun and it's heartbreaking and it's devastating, and you're going to cry and you're going to wallow and you're going to scream and you're going to go through the 5 stages of grief, right? But then you know what happens? Then you accept it. You start to think about, what did I learn from this? And you move on. And that's an amazing, beautiful, phenomenal thing. So don't worry about pivoting because you are afraid that you are going to look like a failure. We all fail, and that's okay. And that is absolutely beautiful. I do believe that there's beauty in it because the things that I have learned from failing, those are lessons I will never forget. Failure to me is like data collection. So I know is it data or data? Well, tomato, whatever you call it. Failure to me is like data collection because it gives you an opportunity to collect information so that you can look back at it and see where you went wrong, where the mistakes were made, so that when you do it again, right? Whew, I feel a praise coming on. When you do it again, you can look at this information and says, well, this worked, this didn't work. And now you have this blueprint, right? You're like, yes, yes. So failure is not the end. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you are your failures, or because you have failed at something that you'll never be successful, because every successful person has failed. And here's another one. This one I think is the biggest one, right? What will other people say? Now, there's this thing that says, what other people think of you is none of your business. And this is a mantra I am going to ask you to learn. I am going to try to mention it every episode. What not necessarily in those exact words, but I truly believe that we can't keep worrying about what other people think. Other people don't pay our bills. Other people don't have our responsibilities. Other people are not us. But we are so worried about what other people think and say about us that it immobilizes us. We are stuck. We don't go any further. We don't pivot. We continue down paths that we really and truly should have left. We stay in toxic relationships. We stay in toxic jobs. We are miserable mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We're stunted because we are afraid of what other people will say. But here's the thing, other people are going to say what they're going to say, regardless of what you do. I have somebody where I speak to often, and always telling them, they're always trying to explain, but I'm a good person and this person doesn't think I'm a good person. And they, in turn, bend over backwards to try to get this person to see that they're a good person, and, allows this other person to take advantage of them. And I keep saying to them, they have made up their mind about who you are, and it doesn't matter what you do. So pray for them and move on in kindness, because they're not going to change how they think about you as long as you know that you are doing the right thing. So stop allowing them to take advantage of you, but they won't get it. Folks are going to think what folks are going to think. And, I don't set out to make people dislike me. I don't set out to be antagonistic. I don't set out to be rude. I truly believe that I lead in love and kindness, but there are going to be people who are not drawn to me. They're going to be people who don't like me for whatever reason. And a friend of mine, and Denzel Washington said it, and then a friend of mine reminded me of it, and I say it all the time. They don't like you because your spirit irritates their demons. And it's as simple as that, because they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. So this is why they don't want to be around you. This is why they're uncomfortable when you walk in a room. So stop allowing the fear of what other people will say keep you from doing what you need to be doing. Folks are going to talk no matter what you do. So you are in a situation that you absolutely know that you need to turn around. You absolutely, and whether you went into this big and bold and you proclaimed it on the mountaintop that I am going to medical school and I'm going to be a doctor, and halfway through it didn't work out, something happened, whether it's financial, emotional, it's okay to pivot. Whether you said it quietly and you were doing it, whether it's the expectations of others, you have to be able to say, I'm going to pivot and folks are going to talk about me. And it's okay. I don't allow what other people will say to be the deciding factor in decisions that I make, because I know that ultimately I can't please people. You absolutely cannot please anyone. It is absolutely impossible. Jesus Christ himself was on earth and he could not please everyone. So, how am I, a mere mortal, going to please everyone? So, I am begging you tonight, I am urging you, if you need to pivot, you need to pivot. I do offer coaching. And, when I'm coaching someone and, they say to me, well, this is not something I want to do anymore. I want to change. But, everybody knows that's what I do. And I'm just afraid of what they're going to say. And I ask them, so what? So what? What if they talk about you? What if they say things about you? They're going to say it whether you pivot or not. But if you pivot, you will be happy. All right, I'm done. I think I'm done saying pivot. It's the title. I've said it a few times. I am done. But if you want to change path, if you want to go in a different direction, it is absolutely okay. Don't let anybody hold you to something that you know is not right for you. Don't let anybody hold you to something that you know is not making you happy. Don't let anybody hold you to something that you know is impacting you mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Don't let somebody else's dream for you stop you from finding, chasing, and achieving your dream. And here's the thing, your dream could change. For years, I was a retail leader, loved it, worked in retail for over 20 something years. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I liked the hiring. I liked the recruiting. I liked the onboarding. I love the customer service, the training, the development. And I worked for large companies, small companies in different capacity. I've been customer service. I've been operations. I've been HR. I have been a district manager, store manager, assistant manager, and I loved them all. And one day, it's not that I stopped loving it. I knew that it was time. And I made a decision to do something else, and zero regrets. And, the beautiful thing about this life that I'm living, I still don't know what the future holds for me. I know what I'm going after. I know that I'm a coach. I'm a business consultant. I'm an author. I am a mortgage loan officer. I'm a more motivational speaker. And there's a plethora of things that I do. But my story isn't over, just like your story isn't over. And, I get up every single day excited about the possibilities. And, different people reach out to me with different opportunities, and they're not right for me. And it's not even that I'm looking in that sense. It's just that I I'm open to what God has in store for me. And as long as you're alive, your story has not ended. As long as you're alive, there are infinite possibilities of what you can do. So don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to do something that's for you. I had a conversation with someone, and they were thinking of closing their business. And it was hard for them because they were thinking about, well, what are folks going to say? I've had this business. They're going to think that I failed. And the funny thing is, I actually had a business several years ago, and it was my husband and I, and we ended up closing the business for many reasons. And the thing was, we weren't passionate about it. It was something that we got into that we liked, but it was something that we were passionate about. So when the time came for us to renew our lease, and the landlord wanted like a multi-year lease, it was a very long lease that they wanted. And I was just like, I did not see myself in this role for that many years, but I knew that I would be tied to a lease. And we talked about it and talked about it. And ultimately, we decided not to continue the business. And it was a great decision at the time. I was disappointed. At the end of the day, we had a business and then we didn't have a business, but zero regrets because I would have been stuck in a lease for years, even when it was something that I no longer wanted to do. And, when I'm talking to this person, I'm saying, like, hey, it's okay. Think about the reasons why you want to close your business. Think about the reasons why it's a good idea, why it works for you. And, jot it down. Like, are you making money? Are you passionate about it? And, input versus output and all of these things. And then after many conversations, they realize that it was the right decision all along. And the only thing that was holding them back was they were afraid of what other people will say because they closed their business. They were afraid that other people would think they're a failure. And I'm like, that's the last thing you need to worry about. Don't worry about it. There is this woman that I listen to, and I follow her on Instagram. Her name is Lynn Richardson. I think it's Richardson. And, she has this quote, and, I repeat it often to people. Broke people spend money they don't have trying to impress other broke people. So here's the deal. Successful people are not worrying about you and if you fail and sitting down and gossiping and talking. Successful, happy people. So why are you worried about people who chances are sometimes they're not even doing that great? And it's not that you're celebrating them not doing well. They're not doing well and you're worried about them judging you? Uh-uh. Stop trying to impress folks that you're not even impressed with. Stop trying to impress folks that you wouldn't even ask for advice. Stop trying to impress folks that you're not impressed with. Like, come on. It is absolutely okay to pivot. So if you're struggling with a decision that I know I promised you no more pivot, right? If you're struggling with something like, should I continue? Should I change the direction? Should I shift? Work it out for you. Do what I do. I'm a big fan of pro con list, right? I look at what it is, pros and con. But if it makes sense for you, do it. Never be afraid to do what is right for you. So it's okay to change course and directions and job and careers, and it's okay to change things. It's okay to do it when you want to do it. You don't have to ask permission. So I was going to do something. I was going to talk about something, but it was the Barbie movie. Yes, I did see the Barbie movie. Maybe I'll do a breakdown of the Barbie movie, but I know I don't want to give away any spoiler because I know that some folks haven't seen it. But one of the question, somebody said to Barbie is, you don't need my permission. You don't even need my permission. You have a podcast and I'm talking about it, but you don't need my permission. Look within yourself for the permission to change course. No, changing course is not a failure for you. And it doesn't matter what other people will say. You ultimately have to do what's right for you. So make that decision and stand by it. And even if you make that decision and it's the wrong one, it's okay. As long as you're alive, you can make that decision again. You can start over as many times as you like. You can stop as many times as you like. Because in the end, it is about doing what works for you. And until next time, this is Suzanne saying, you got this. You can absolutely do this. I believe in you, but it really doesn't matter if I believe in you. You have to believe in you. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Sit Down with Suzanne podcast, which is available in all major podcasts and directories, including Amazon, Apple, Google, Pandora, Spotify, and a plethora of other spaces, including my very own website at www.positivelysuzanne.com. So choose your app and subscribe, listen, like, share, write a review. Do what you got to do, but make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend that this podcast is where it's at. You can also support the podcast by donating to the show at buymeacoffee.com/positively Susie. And until next time, this is Suzanne saying, you, my dear, are worth it.